Hello, music lovers from Bangkok, Thailand. I'm Scott Coates, and with me in Calgary, Canada is Darren Scott. We're two members of the Sonic Collective. On this episode, we're continuing our focused topic series, chatting with none other than Sam Roberts of the Sam Roberts Band. So, Darren, how did you originally get into Sam Roberts Band?
Scott, I got into Sam Roberts' band, just called Sam Roberts back then, back when he first did his We Were Born in a Flame album. It was massive on the charts here in Canada. I know by then you had moved to Thailand, but he had some massive hits on that album that just were on the radio all the time. And maybe to his detriment a little bit, they were overplayed, a lot. And I think a lot of people got a taste in their mouth that maybe he was a bit too poppy or just kind of a one-hit wonder type band. But he just continued to deliver, puts out great songs. He's an amazing songwriter. It's definitely power pop rock, but he can pump it out. And you know what? Most people love that kind of music, and he just seems to nail it over and over again. But that was, kind of my first experience with Sam Roberts Band for sure. What about you, Scott?
I had come back to Calgary in the summer of 2003, and I was doing some work at a friend of ours' bar. And I now know that a few songs I was hearing on heavy rotation on the music at the restaurant and bar were Sam Roberts, but I didn't really know who they were at the time. And then living here in Thailand, I wasn't hearing them on the radio, but some reason in about 2010, I stumbled upon Sam Roberts, and I've been listening to them fairly solidly since then, going through the whole back catalog. And in fact, I selected We Were Born in a Flame as one of my musical choices back a couple of years ago. And I think overall we enjoyed it a fair bit. So anyway, back up just a month or so ago, October 2020, the band released All of Us. And we were listening to it and enjoying it and thought, you know what, let's see if Sam would chat with us about the latest release. So he was super kind, connected with us, and we had a really nice discussion about his approach to writing, what it means to be Canadian, and the challenge of releasing new music during COVID. So let's get into it. We're delighted to be joined today by Sam Roberts of Sam Roberts Band, who joins us online from his home in Montreal, Canada. Thanks for joining us, Sam.
It's a pleasure to be here, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, so we kind of did some digging and reading the back history to remind ourselves all about you and the band. And you've recently released All of Us, which we'll discuss soon. But first, we're going to look back a bit. And you've been putting out major label releases for about 18 years, I think. So what is it you still love about creating and performing music after all these years?
I think, first of all, I'm not qualified at this point to do anything else with my life. Music is a bit of an all-in scenario. You can't get into it in the first place unless you've put all your eggs in that basket. I guess, like you say, 18, 20 years down the line, you find that it still requires that same level of dedication and ambition. And that can apply to so many things that are involved in this sort of idea of a life in music. And certainly from a songwriting perspective, it still requires all of my attention and all of my focus to get to the kind of place when I'm writing a song that I feel is digging deep enough. Challenge yourself, to push yourself, to find good music in yourself. And then also, going on tour and performing with the kind of urgency and desperation that a band ought to muster on stage every night. So I haven't really noticed, it's not like I haven't noticed the years going by, although when you present it that way, it sounds like a staggering number even to myself that we've managed to survive this long doing those things. Yeah, the fire's still burning, and the drive is still there to, again, just see what else we're capable of doing.
Yeah, Sam, in 2011, you released Collider, and along with it, you changed your name from the Sam Roberts to Sam Roberts Band. I guess I'm just curious. I don't know the story. Why and how did that change come about?
Well, I think it's so funny how a 4-letter word, adding band on the end of it, it seems so insignificant, but it meant the world, I think, to myself and my bandmates in just acknowledging the fact that they play a big role and always have. It wasn't just like in 2011, they started to become more involved in the process. They were always involved in the process, whether it was making records to, especially on tour, when you watch our band on stage, there's not just a spotlight on myself and the other guys are sort of laboring away in the shadows. They are very much front and center. It just felt like it was time, and long overdue at that, to acknowledge their efforts and the role they play in the band.
Very cool. Well, Sam, I read that you were born to parents from South Africa who immigrated to Canada, and I believe you were very, very young when you immigrated to Canada. Is that right?
No, I was born here. I was the first. They had just arrived a few weeks prior, and I was born. I was the first person from our family born in Montreal, in Canada.
Okay. Well, I'm wondering, like, having parents as immigrants, did that influence your songwriting or your view on what it means to be Canadian at all?
Yeah, and it's hard to overstate just how much it's played a role. I don't think I was quite as maybe conscious of it growing up. I mean, I knew that, like anybody whose parents come from somewhere else, that you kind of have one foot in this new world and the other half of you is in the old country. And in this case, I kind of learned about Canada at the same way that as my parents were learning about Canada. And it definitely sort of that experience of watching your parents learn about winter, how to put clothes on for winter, and figuring out which way the seam on your toque is supposed to go, and of course you wear it sideways half the time, and trying to get your kid into his first set of hockey equipment in 1979 and buying him a Boston Bruins jersey in Montreal during the height of the Bruins Habs rivalry.
I was a Nordiques fan.
Oh wow. I wasn't even allowed to watch Nordiques games. My parents thought it was like a bench clearing brawl every single time they played each other. So it was.
Oh yeah.
It took WWF wrestling and put it to shame, basically. But yeah, and in terms of later on and how that affects songwriting and obviously your story and how you've grown up is a huge part of where you approach finding art in yourself or music in yourself. And even on a more sort of overt level, they brought over all these great records of South African music that I still to this day, I consider it, the biggest part of my musical diet, I would say. Amazing bands from the townships that just created a music to me that just, I don't know, it sparked something in me and made me want to write music. So it played, again, like I said, it's hard to downplay just how much of an effect it had on me.
What are a few albums that influenced your musical tastes early in life?
Paul Simon's first solo record was, with me and Julio down by the schoolyard, was always on repeat around the house. And then he went and took his own sort of, unique sensibilities and mashed it together with all this South African music that had grown up listening to, and came up with this record that nothing short of life-changing for me.
Mm-hmm. On the flip side, one thing we've talked about is guilty pleasures. What would you say one of your guilty pleasure?
Oh my God. I've been trying to make this playlist for my kids that gets us from Montreal. When there isn't a global pandemic, we try to go out to Nova Scotia by car for the last couple of weeks of every summer.
Yeah.
And that's like our family getaway. And I've been trying to get us a playlist that gets us to Nova Scotia and back without repeating any songs. So, of course, this is a huge musical journey that you have to go on. This is a very roundabout answer to your question.
It's about a 10-hour drive. I'm from Prince Edward Island, and I know Montreal to PI is 12 hours.
Exactly. So, we stop in PI often on the way. We'll do a little side detour. In that process of trying to make this playlist, you realize that you're going to have to go through various sort of musical periods, and you can't throw in something from like 1981 and then something from 2007 back. So you have these phases and these kind of eras that you focus on, and then you try to move it along, So one of them, a big chunk of it, is 1980s pop music that I grew up listening to. And I came across Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley. And I found myself knowing every word and unable to help sing full voice. I'll go with that. I don't even know if that's a guilty pleasure because it's such a solid tune, but
it is what it is. Well, just before we get to the new album, I've got to ask you about a song that I absolutely love from you guys, from the We Were Born in a Flame, The Canadian Dream. How did that song come about? I've listened to the lyrics super carefully. I think I have an idea, but can you give us a wee bit of background on The Canadian Dream?
We live in the shadow of our big and loud neighbors to the south, with this idea of the American dream, this sort of notion of limitless possibility that sort of is the birthright birthright of every American and as a Canadian. And then we got, to talking about this earlier, trying to figure out what it means to be Canadian. I think we ask ourselves that question more than a lot of countries do. And I think rightly so. It's part of what I think is great about this country is that we don't stop learning about ourselves and we don't stop trying to push ourselves in not just forwards, but in better directions. Obviously, we've got a lot of work to do. And I think this song is an acknowledgement of that. It's an acknowledgement of that process of trying to come to understand yourself, but also through the things that make us unique, us and the Siberians, in terms of having the winter also play a part in the soul of the country. And there's instead of that loud, chest thumping form of patriotism, there's times here where it's more of a quiet contemplation. And I think the idea of the winter lends itself to that. I haven't thought about that song, to be honest with you, in a really long time. And if you'd asked me in 2001, America had 2002, the States had just invaded Iraq. There was very much a sort of, you're either with us or against us. There wasn't room in the world at that point for any kind of dissent. The song was much more political than it is now. The idea of shouting out, spelling out socialism at that time felt like a much, sort of riskier move than it does now.
Yeah, it's on a lot of my playlists and I listen to it over and over. So anyway, let's get to the new album, All of Us, which came out in October. Where and when did you write this album?
I wrote it right here in this room. This is the basement of my house. This is where I do all my writing. So I spent a couple of years down here and got really pale, emerged after a while with songs for a new record. But we'd come off the road from our previous record, Terraform, and we toured that. We pushed the touring probably another 6 months longer than we usually would, because touring has become essentially the only way for a band to survive financially these days. So we just kept going with that record. And that kind of puts you into I don't want to say puts you on your back foot, but by stalling the creative process by that 6 months, you end up finding yourself playing catch up a lot of the time. And I needed to step away too, just having played so much music. So you got to give yourself a little bit of time to clear the air. And then finally you get down to writing for a record. This time around, it just felt like we couldn't rush it because we're sort of behind in this imaginary schedule of ours, that the record had to be the right thing. So yeah, I just kind of wrote until I felt like it got to the place that it needed to be. But I think it was the first time that I didn't allow that sort of the pressure of the schedule to kind of dictate when you say, okay, this is done now. It's just like, no, just keep writing until this feels like it's coming from the heart. And when it's there, okay, then we'll, go in and record it.
Yeah, interesting. And now in this modern time, we know it was written before COVID, but how did COVID impact your ability as a band to, collaborate and complete and get the album released?
Well, we just finished recording it right before the first lockdown in March. So we squeaked it in right under the wire, which was very fortunate because I think we would have still been working on it, to be honest, via Zoom or whatever recording sessions, In terms of releasing the album, it's definitely forced us to think outside the box and use tools like this, get the word out by speaking to whoever will listen. And a lot of conventional journalism has gone, unfortunately, the way of the dodo these days. And a lot of the sort of music writing staffs have been cut out of newspapers and things like that. So it really does come to finding people who are passionate about talking about music. So a lot of what we've done during the pandemic has been to try to find those people, find those champions who will go out there and spread the word that there's new music to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of wondering, you mentioned that, the business is touring now. So you release an album. How do you measure success when you share a new album with the world now? What's your measure of success?
I don't know. We're finding that out. The thing too is that it's been changing anyway. Like not just because of the pandemic, that, we were just talking about how touring is the only way for a band to essentially make a living. That has been the case for over a decade at this point. So that idea of success is very difficult to pinpoint because we were joking about having a platinum record on the wall, but it is a relic, we won't get any more of them. And, but it's true. We don't sell records anymore, and we won't be getting platinum or gold records anymore. So how do you measure it then? Because that's such a nice way to quantify, how a record is doing. And now it's hard to say, how many subscribers you have on your YouTube channel, or how many followers you have on one of your social media platforms. Ideally, it's how many people are still showing up to your gigs. I mean, I think that's probably the closest way. Are you still able to go out and play shows and get people out to your shows, get people to buy tickets to come and see you? But when you take that away because you've got a pandemic on your hands, then the question goes to a deeper level, and I don't think we have an answer for that just yet.
All of us, the video for All of Us was by What Gifts Jordan Allen. You've now worked with him in several projects. I guess what drew you to Jordan's style and the art? And I mean, your album art is always fantastic too.
Well, thanks. Yeah, Jordan's just he's a whiz. He's got such a fluid, creative mind, the likes of which are hard to find there, and he can tackle any subject, any challenge, and put a unique spin on it. I love that when you take a song and you give it to someone who's working in a visual medium, and they then show you back your own song in a way that you never imagined it, and that's what somebody like Jordan can do. So I'm always we try not to give him any direction whatsoever about what we want, and just sort of say, okay, well, what do you hear or what do you see rather when you hear this? And he just comes back with these amazing things. And then when it comes time to make another video, or it's like, okay, I wonder what. Now it's like the first question. It's like, I wonder how Jordan sees this. So he's been absolutely instrumental. And like you're saying, like, how do you release a record in these times? Well, you find people around you who can do amazing things with limited resources and go and make something special out of it.
Yeah. And so you didn't even influence him on the Montreal Canadiens little clip in there?
That was all him. That's that. I love it when it's not like I've made any secret about being a Habs fan, for sure, but over the years. Yeah, I guess he did his homework.
I saw you recently performed a socially distanced drive-in show in Toronto. What was that experience like?
It was, we were so excited to first of all, just have a show, to be booked to play, something that we do all the time. And I guess we've taken for granted at points over the last 20 years, but to actually be able to get up there in front of an audience when you didn't think it was going to happen was pretty amazing. And then it starts to settle in that, oh wait, it's going to be an audience of automobiles. And how do we deliver a show when you don't get any of the usual feedback? But, I think the people in the crowd were also just as excited to be out there, not having been able to go to a concert, having been able to have just a night out with their friends or their family, that they somehow made us feel like we were way back in 2019 playing a summer festival. They honked and they flashed their high beams and they put their windshield wipers on, and we felt the love for sure.
So, I mean, at this point, is the album going to tour, or do you just have to sit and wait? Any sorts of plans at the moment?
Yeah, Scott, I'm not sure, man. I think that if things go well, and I think we're saying that about everything. We're all saying that about, regardless of whether you play in a band or are waiting to go on tour. We're all just hoping that things go well first and foremost. But given that, if we do get a chance to go on tour within the first, say, 6 months of 2021, then we will. But after that, an album is only new for so long. And then there's that other part of you that you can't just turn on and off, which is the need to do something new. And then like we were saying earlier on about how when you do push the touring side too far and you take away from the creative side, it can sort of, it does play a role and influences it quite a bit. So I hope that we can find a balance between the two, go and tour this record, play it, and then start thinking about what the next chapter is going to be. Our celebratory post-COVID album, it's going to be like a real 80s style free-for-all, hair metal free-for-all.
All right. Well, let's hope that happens.
As mentioned when we were just chatting before we started the show here, I have kids similar in age to yours, 9 and almost 13. Kind of on a personal note, I mean, I felt lucky to spend more time with them during the pandemic, and you're kind of forced to, but I feel like it's made my kids closer and their family a bit closer. I'm just curious. You're usually out touring probably more, but now you've got this time with the family. How's this time affected you and your family at home?
Yeah, we're still all talking to each other. We have one more child, and that tips the balance. That's just the two. If it had just been two of the three, for sure.
Yeah.
No, it was hard when they were at home and we were homeschooling, which I don't know if you went through that out in Alberta or in Bangkok, but we had them at home for the 3 months. And I think that's when it really started to sink in. And I was glad to not be on tour at that point, definitely, to be able to help out with the math homework and the geography and just try to make their lives feel a little bit closer to normal. And then, but I'm sure they're wondering, like, is Dad going on tour anytime soon, man? Because he's just every time I go around the corner, there he is, But no, it's for sure. It is an opportunity to kind of spend more time together, and it's just the problem in Quebec. We can't go anywhere, so you're literally sort of at home all the time. I mean, the summer things kind of loosened up a little bit, but they've tightened back up again. So we're spending a lot of quality time together for sure.
Cool. Well, I want to thank you for releasing a new album. I listened to it on a road trip here with my wife a few weeks ago, and it's bands like you, and then AC/DC's got one coming out. I feel like if there was ever a time we need our bands to put out some kick-ass music, it's right now. And I've enjoyed this one. And if for some reason someone listening hasn't listened to all of us, how can you describe the album? What can people expect from all of us in that journey?
It really is an album I didn't write it about the pandemic. I finished it just before this happened, but it is an album about hope, and it's about looking into your own life, into your own memories, and finding the things that you need, the light in there that you need to push forward. So in a strange way, even though it was written we needed those same things in 2018 and 2019. The world was already revving at, some pretty heavy RPMs at that point and teetering on the brink of any number of different precipices. And then the sort of 2020 just felt like it just kind of tipped the scale completely. So this record was written in response to that, our own need for hope, but also being able to look inward and finding it there. If I'd said something like that in 2017, it wouldn't have rung as true to me. But I really do feel like that's what people need in their lives now. And we've been pushed to a limit that I don't think any of us ever anticipated having to live through. And oftentimes it's music that can provide that little bit of solace or direction or comfort. And I hope this record is that to anyone who can find it in it.
Yeah, Sam, thanks so much. I like that. Look inward for hope. That's a good way to wrap this up. And we want to thank you so much for your time today, Sam. It's just been great talking to you and great to catch up with fellow Canadians and promote music in this tough time when we have to promote it because we can't go out and see it live.
Well, guys, like I said, we have to thank you for taking your passion and helping spread the word, because it does the world of good for all of us musicians. So we really appreciate it.
Thanks, Sam.
Well, that was a fantastic conversation, and I can't thank Sam Roberts enough. For me, I really liked that he was just very authentic and really answered thoughtfully to all our questions. And I like, too, I mentioned in the interview that we have similar age children. He has one in the middle, but I think he has 9, 11, and 13, and I have a 9 and almost 13-year-old. So I like that. And it's funny during these times when you talk about being segregated from everybody during COVID and how your family reacts. And I was always impressed because my kids have gotten along better and my family, I think, has grown closer. Yeah, and to me, that was an interesting part of the interview that came out when you're talking to, this famous Canadian rock musician. So I really like that. What about you, Scott? What did you take from that?
Just a super nice, down-to-earth guy who was really open about his story. When we started talking, we said, hey, is there anything that you don't really want to talk about? And he said, no, let's just see how it goes. And you just realize that everyone's got their job and they're regular people. And he was a regular guy. It was kind of funny because you and I both have nice looking podcasting mics. And before we started the official interview, you and I kind of looked at our videos and mentioned, ooh, your mic looks good. And as soon as he came on, being a pro musician, he actually made the comment like, ooh, you guys have some nice pro mics. mics. And it turned out he was just using like Apple earbuds or something. So we were kind of kidding with him that he might want to get his act together and get a more pro mic if he really wants a career in this thing, which was funny. And he just thought that was pretty funny. What are your impressions of the latest album, All of Us, Darren?
Yeah, all of us. I mean, Sam Robertson, I mentioned earlier that he just continues to be just an amazing writer. I read another article, I believe it's in the Montreal Gazette, looked that one up as well, just recently out, about how he sets time for himself and he approaches it almost like a job. And he's like, I'm going to write from, 9 o'clock till noon today. And he sets deadlines for song and stuff. Anyway, amazing songwriter. And I think here in Canada, a little bit before I Like the Way You Talk About the Future was released a few months back. So that's been on the radio. So I'd heard that coming, but I got to say, I was super impressed. Like first track, Wolf Tracks, I really, really liked. I just thought it was just a cool song. It's funny because he wrote this before the pandemic, but it's kind of hit the moment. And he even mentioned that too in another interview about how they went back and re-listened, but still felt it held up. Yeah, interesting. I also really liked Ascension and All of Us, and there's videos by What Gifts, an amazing talented artist from Toronto named Jordan Allen. Yeah, this track drew me right back into Sam Roberts, and maybe I'm a little starstruck because we got to interview him, but he was a really good guy. He's an amazing songwriter, and I just really thought the album was fantastic. So what about you? What were your thoughts on All of Us?
Actually, what I'm enjoying about it is that it's growing on me. I'll admit I listened to it first in October on a road trip with my wife here in Thailand. And I thought like, this is all right. And then we listened to it a second time on the road trip and I thought, yeah, this is all right. And each time I've listened to it, it actually has grown to me and I like it more and it seems to be becoming a stronger album. And I kind of find the albums I like the most are the ones like that kind of draw out over time. I really like Ascension. I mean, you can just imagine that being played in a stadium. Spellbound, I really love the dreamy quality. But something I like about this album and all Sam Roberts albums is that I feel they're like done in the traditional sense of an album, from back in the 70s and 80s where songs are woven together in a particular order. They take you on a real journey, right? And the songs are better listened into that order. And there's no stinkers. Like every song on this is listenable. I don't find myself wanting to skip. And again, it's just growing on me. So I really like it. I think it's a solid entry. And again, for me, at first I was like, yeah, it's okay, but it's definitely growing on me. I think it's a really, really strong release.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, and I agree. There's not a stinker on there. You could put this album on and just vibe in the background. It's great. Like I said, very approachable, but fantastic writing and just great rock music. Thank you so very much for Sam chatting with us. We're very appreciative. We hope you're able to tour the album in due time. But, for now, be sure to search for All of Us on streaming and purchase platforms and, buy an album. Now is the time to support music and especially live music and Canadian music more than ever. Find a way to do it. Support that. And to listeners, thank you very much for joining us on this musical journey. We'll be back with another musical exploration real soon. For Darren Scott and Scott Coates at The Sonic Collective at thesonic collective.com, we're out of here.